Greetings, boys and girls! It is me, Emperor Jonwayne Frankenstein, the forever game master that has been playing Dungeons & Dragons for 4 decades, now sharing my insight and wisdom with you! Because you deserve it. You need it. You love it. And, you know, I see all these teenagers and young people talking about D&D, acting like they know everything, and some of them are better than others, but come on. I'm a middle-aged, old, fogey, creepy man that was playing D&D when it was on cool, and you were criticized for it. And then, well, I played it so long, I don't know much more about anything than that. Besides all the creepy old movies I watch, which you can also watch on Emperor Jonwayne's Freaky Flicks. In any case, today I'm going to discuss with you what I believe is the best method for character creation when you use dice rolls. Now, there is the point distribution system and the standard array, which is basically standard. And if you're going to go to a table or whatnot, this is probably the preferred way to make a character, just so you know it will be accepted and people won't challenge it. But as a game master and a player, we love rolling characters and taking our luck on the dice. That's one of the reasons we play role-playing games, besides playing another role. And another thing, let's face it, the standard array point distribution system makes really low stat characters. Granted, if everyone starts out with the same stats, it's not bad. But what we want from a dice rolling system is something that makes consistent characters that aren't unbalanced. You know, some sets give characters that are really weak and ones that are really powerful. You want the abilities to generally be good because the players are heroes after all, and not generally to be overpowered. You want a good range. You want it so all the players come out roughly the same, and you want them to be above average so the players feel good about their characters, with the potential for some weaknesses to make them more interesting, possibly. And of course, the number one thing is you want most of the players to come out about the same. Now, other popular methods are the straight roll 3d6. That produces more or less lower abilities than any other method, and also wildly different amounts per player. Typically, if you have like 4 to 6 players, one player may have really good abilities, and then a couple players will have really bad abilities, and most will have kind of average abilities. And you might not have the stats for the classes you want, especially if you want a multi-class. And that's another thing. You want to be able to have the players to have the stats they want, to build the characters they want, especially when they multi-class, which means they're going to need at least 13. And there's a lot of character classes, like the Paladin and the Bard and the Monk, that are what they call mad or multi-ability dependent, where they need 2 or 3 or even more abilities above average. So the 3d6 method, while the truest form, is a little weak in that regards. The other method people use is roll 3d6 twice, take the better number, and go do that 6 times. This method produces slightly better characters with not so many lower averages, but it still has a wide range. And you still can possibly get a 3 in a stat, or have one person with like a 3 and a 4, and then someone else with like an 18 and a 17. A very popular method is roll 4d6, drop the low, and that produces slightly better ones, but it also has a tendency to produce characters that are inconsistent from player to player. Another popular method is to take one of those other methods and then either re-roll the 1s or re-roll the 1s and 2s. And that produces slightly better characters, ones that don't have super low numbers, but still tends to be unbalanced and unhinged. The method I found that is the best is to roll 2d6 and add 6. And if you want to play a higher level campaign, because some game masters want the players to be really powerful, the variation of that would be roll 3d6, drop the low, add 6. Now, this method, I think, is the best method for rolling character dice for the following reasons. You get characters that are generally above average. You still can get an 8 or a 9, which is below average, and you still have a chance to get a 17 or 18, and you have an equal chance of either of those happening. The average stat you're going to get is between 12 and 14, which puts you slightly above average. So generally speaking, everyone will have 1 or 2 really good stats, and then maybe 1 not so good stat, and then a few average stats. Now this is great for most D&D campaigns because it produces heroic characters that are above average without making them too above average, and without a big discrepancy where one player has super low stats and one has super high stats. Now, if you do get someone that rolls super low, you can just let them roll again. And again, like I said, if you're playing a campaign where you want the players to be more powerful, well, then you do the 3d6, drop the low, add 6. I'm going to do an example of making a character right now. I'll try to make an Emperor Jonwayne PC at level 1. Now, I'm shooting for a cleric with this one, a Twilight cleric. I was very tempted to do a Lore Master Bard because, well, I know I present freaky movies and lore about Dungeons and Dragons, and I am somewhat of an entertainer myself. I even go out and do local theater and host and volunteer for horror movies and stuff in the local cinema. And I'm a game master, which is indeed an art form in and of itself. But I'm also an interdimensional celestial being that comes to the human world during times of change and transitions to help you through the liminal space. And I'm a creature that lives right on the shadows, the borders between the light and the darkness, which is why I love hosting horror shows and, of course, playing games like Dungeons and Dragons. And I don't play any musical instruments. So I just decided the Twilight Cleric. Of course, we'll use the 2024 rules because we're trying to be all up to date. And if you're a game master, and well, my game master that was making me play this character didn't allow me to use the Twilight Cleric, I would go for the Light Cleric, which is very similar. But the Light Cleric, oh my god, it's the best cleric of all because it gets Fireball! It's like you get all the fun of being able to wear armor, use weapons, fight up line, and cast Fireball! 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 It's like you get to outmage the mage! Alright, so let us roll the dice and see where they may fall. A 5 plus 6, that's an 11. A 9 plus 6, that's a 15. A 10, that's a 16. See, I'm already ahead of the standard array. Got pretty good stats, but they aren't completely broken. And the next one is a 7. So that'll be a 13. A 5, another 11. And an 8. That's a 14. So, I got one really good stat, two more stats that are fairly good but not completely broken, and a couple slightly above average human but no advantage stats. So, when you're making a cleric, you have to decide whether you want, in the 4th edition, whether you want to get heavy armor proficiency and martial weapons, or if you want to get an extra cantrip and to be able to add your wisdom bonus to Arcana and History. Now, I gotta admit, the heavy armor and Melee weapons sounds tempting, but the other option is probably better because if you go for heavy armor, you're going to have to load up the strength and have at least 15 in it, and you're going to have to lower your dex. But the dex is such an important stat in D&D because it helps initiative, armor class, ranged attacks, damage with finesse weapons, and dex saves, which are all supremely important, where strength only helps with athletics, grappling, and melee attacks or hurled weapons attacks. So sadly, dexterity is just made to be too high of a stat and too important in the game, which is unfortunate that it's on balance like that, but that is the way it is. Now, since we're going to be using medium armor, the hell? Sorry about that. I just had technical difficulties with a slight disruption in the computer system. It would seem that the gremlins are active, trying to mess with me. Those bastards. Well, for our character, intelligence is our least important stat, so we'll put one of the 11s there. We don't need a dex higher than 14, so we'll put the 13 there. We are a cleric, so we want the wisdom to be our best, so 16 there. Oh, actually, we will put the 14 for dex because I know what subclass we're going to go for. Let's see. We will put the 15 in Constitution because I'm a big, hardy guy. And, well, I like the extra hit points. But 13 in Charisma and the 11 in Strength. So we have an 11, 14, 15, 11, 16, 13. We will take Human. And then for the background, we will take Scribe. So we can get a plus to the Constitution and a plus to the Wisdom and get Magic Initiate so we can cast more spells. So we got a 16 Con, 14 Dex, 11 Strength, 11 Intelligence, 18 Wisdom, 13 Charisma. Then with armor, we'll be able to start out with a shield and probably something like Scale Mail. So we'll start out with about an 18 armor class right off the get-go. For hit points, we're going to start out with 11. That's great. For our human feat, we'll take Magic Initiate Druid to get 2 extra cantrips and 1 extra first level spell. And then we, with the Sage, yeah, we'll take the Sage background to get the Magic Initiate. Since, you know, we kind of want to be borderline a mage here, and it gives us both Arcanum and History, which, if we take the Twilight, with the Priest kit we're taking, we're going to get to add +4 to those skills, making us pretty good at them. And then we also get Calligraphy, which will allow us, that and Arcana will allow us to make scrolls, and it'll give us Magic Initiate Wizard. So we're going to start out with like 6 cantrips, making us highly versatile and utilitarian right away, and 1 mage spell, which we could either take Find Familiar, so we can have a familiar, which is always great, and, you know, well, everyone likes the Elf Familiar, but I have come to love the Bat Familiar, because then you can cast Fog Cloud or Darkness or Invisibility and use its ability of Blind Sight within 60 feet to get advantage on all your attacks if your opponent's all disadvantage. Or Shield, so when you're in combat, you can still whack things around. And then with the Mage one, you could probably take either Mage Hand or Minor Illusion, which are like the 2 best utilitarian cantrips. And in this case, we'll take True Strike, so that when we get in combat, we can use our staff, which can act as Arcane Focus, to do 1d8 plus and radiant damage plus our Wisdom modifier, or we can use a light crossbow at a range to do 1d8 plus our Wisdom modifier for damage, which is great. As a cleric, we can take Toll the Dead as one of our cantrips, and with a druid, we can take Thorn Whip, so we have control and can push things around and all that. Maybe Goodberry for the first level spell. We'll have to look at those druid spells. Of course, that is beyond the point of this video. I'm not here to tell you how to make a kick-ass cleric. That'll be another video. I was just showing you an example of using this system to make a character and how effective it is and superior to other systems. And it's like, I made a really fairly good character. I mean, it's not overly strong or smart, but it's kind of nimble. Not super nimble, just nimble enough to be effective in combat. But he's tough as nails, wise as hell, kind of likable, not great with the 13. Potential for a lot of growth and a great starting set. It's got, he can even though he's a cleric, he can kind of go around acting like the ultimate spellcaster with that wide array of cantrips, and be very, very functional utilitarian. Plus, he has 2 extra spells per day. 1 first level druid, 1 first level wizard spell that gets also added to spell selection. So this is a pretty good, pretty well balanced character. Oh, and he's really good at Arcana and history, which is great. Of course, with the human skill, I would take Perception, because that's one of the most useful skills in the game. That and Stealth. This character isn't designed for stealth. I mean, until he can afford Breastplate, he's going to have disadvantage on stealth rolls. And he'll be relying on the other spells to give him the equivalent of stealth. But he'll be tough, strong. For the wizard cantrips, we will probably want Religion, because he's a priest. And I would say Insight, to take advantage of his wisdom or survival. So there you go. That is what I think is the best system. If you're going to roll characters, that's the way to do it. You get generally good characters. The players are all balanced. They'll feel happy. They'll feel good with the characters they get. You get a good range of abilities. Nothing too crazy. But if you want the crazy stuff, just add the 1 extra d6, roll 3d6, and drop the low. So, until next time, may you get all your saves successful in the boss fights and all your crits when you're taking on the boss. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Oh, before I go, if you could do us a favor, if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe. I need 1,000 subscriptions to unlock the YouTube features. And if you want to share, like, comment, any activities like that, it increases the logarithm of YouTube, which gives us a chance to get more viewers and more subscriptions, and we could share this with more people. After all, misery loves company, and so do we. Until next time.